the lack of our collective governments not really having a fucking plan as to what even winning looks like in that country, which is why we were there, which I had a guest on here fairly recently say, it was a 20-year war, but it was 21-year wars. It wasn't a 20-year war because of that, as we never really had a clear objective as to what the goal was, other than like this immediate minutia of take that fucking hill or don't take it, or take this one, and that's all anybody knew. And I think that's a mistake.
Do you know what? You're exactly right. And however, when you mentioned the business aspect of things, and everyone should know each other's jobs, and in the Royal Marines, which is the elite of the conventional forces, it wasn't like that at all. It was like, this is your job. I tell you what to do, suck it up and do it. However, not jumping the gun, but when I passed selection and I went out for my second tour of Afghanistan as a tier 1 operator in a tier 1 unit, the mission objective was extremely clear, and each other's roles were extremely clear. The hierarchical structure was just non-existent. When you pass selection, you lose your rank automatically. You start from the very bottom as a trooper or a Marine. So say, for example, we went on selection together. You're a sergeant major, which happens. I'm a sergeant. We both passed. I passed selection before you, 2 years before you, or a year before you. You passed selection, but you were my sergeant major in the Royal Marines. Yeah. All of a sudden, I've passed a year before you. I'm a year senior to you. Yeah. Because promotion is automatic in the special forces. Yeah. So it's a very good point and very, very valid, and it's clear as day now that you've mentioned it, because no one's ever asked me that question before, and I've never thought about it in those two aspects of right, why are we here? What are we doing? And I suppose that's the mentality of the conventional forces. They don't want you to know too much. Yeah. They don't want you to know what you're doing, why you're here, what the overall goal is. Because then you start to think, right? And ultimately you're there, boots on the ground,
not to think.
Show of force, not to know nothing. And when I think about it as well, even as section commander, I got my orders from my troop stripey, from my troop sergeant. And he'd say, "And this is where you're patrolling today. I want you to take your team here. Go no further north than this. See this village on the west. Just that's your left of arc. Here's your right of arc. Go around, ascertain whether there's been any movement in the area, any messaging of hostiles, any messaging about attacks, and any messaging of village takeover. And whilst we're there, do you know what? Actually, push a click north." And we start edging into this area here. But the overall goal, what was it for? Just to take land and take land and take land. What are we going to do? Take the whole of Afghanistan? Yeah. However, when I came back and passed selection, and then went straight out to Afghanistan as point man in a tier 1 team, doing task force missions. HVTs, high value targets. Everything was so clear. Everything was broken down. And this is, I say it subconsciously now. Now I say it consciously because you've made it conscious for me. I say to people, the reason why I joined the Special Forces is because, I wanted to be part of a team. I wanted to know what you done, what my TL done, my team leader done. I wanted to know what my CO done. I wanted to know what the DEMS guy done. I wanted to know, but everyone did know. Yeah. We were all leaders in our own right. We were a group of individuals. We weren't a merged team of one dynamic approach. We were a group of individuals that brought their own uniqueness and their own skill set to the team, but knew that if you got hit, I could step up into your position. I knew exactly where I was going and what I was doing. If I got hit, someone could step into my position and know exactly what I was doing as point man and going through that door, etc., etc. Yeah. And the overall goal and mission And I'll rewind a little bit here. So after my first tour, which wasn't too kinetic, the firefights weren't too bad, but when we patrolled as Royal Marines, we took over from an infantry unit on my first tour in the Royal Marines. And when we rocked up in town, we rocked up Royal Marines, Green Berets. We built the tower in the middle of this fob. Overwatch, laws, anti-tank weapons. We had everything, and we'd hit the ground like Royal Marines, GPMGs. We had two GPMG gunners, 2 mini-me gunners in a patrol. Normally one GPMG gunner, 1 mini-me. We were going out. I'd have my SA-80, I'd have my pistol, I'd have my I'd have a light anti-tank weapon. The show of force alone, you'd be stupid to want to pick a fight with us. I think there were one or two, but nothing that stands out. Like a firefight, which normally in those situations happens from 200 meters away. Click off a couple of rounds, you follow up, they're gone.
How many of you are there when you're out patrolling, like in your section?
Four teams of 8.
4 teams of 8.
So 4 teams of 8 within the Royal Marines. That was Bravo Company. I was in Bravo Company, Royal Marines. 4 teams of 8. So there'd be 32 of us on the ground.
Yeah. Okay.
And we'd either move, depends on the ground. We'd either move, arrowhead formation, linear formation, whatever it may be. We'd just change on the ground. But the difference between going from there, so like I said, once I managed to get out in December and go on selection, as soon as I passed selection, I got deployed to C Squadron, and within 2 weeks I found myself back out in Afghanistan.
Wow.
in a 4-man team.
In a totally different...
As point man.
Yeah.
In a totally fucking different capacity, different mindset, different role, different ways of operating, different rules of engagement, which I think is huge here.
Yeah.
To go from conventional forces to Tier 1 SF. Because our Royal Marines and our paras are like the Tier 2 forces, and then you'll have infantry units, Tier 3, if you had a tier system, but completely different ways of operating.
Yeah.
Which I thought, when I passed selection as an elite conventional forces, as a Royal Marine, it's just going to be the next step up. And I understand why they strip rank from you and you start from the very bottom, because it's a completely different world.
Yeah.